We have been talking about functions, when exactly every input has exactly one output, and we're starting to make connections between how those tables and graphs are related. We've done that in the past. What's new in 7th grade is that now we're going to take an equation and make a graph with it. But wait a minute, can we go straight from an equation to a graph? No, but what could we create that would help us make our graph? Make a table, that's right. And so we're going to look at number 4 together because it wants us to graph each equation. And notice that today they have all 4 quadrants here, which means when we pick numbers, we have to pick some positives and some negatives. But we're always going to pick really easy ones. So for instance, we're going to do number 4 together. And I'm going to make a function table. If you are a really big writer, you might want to do this on a separate sheet of paper, and that's okay with me. I do need to see your work. We get to pick whatever x numbers we want because that's the letter they picked. We're going to put in the function rule, which is 1.5x and y. And I started with one that has this decimal on purpose because sometimes, Dale, if there's crazy numbers like fractions, I don't go 1, 2, 3, 4 because I would rather not use fractions and I'd rather not use decimals if I could stop it, right? I always want to use the number 0 because that's an easy number to do the computation for, and it's going to tell us something really important next week when we start guessing my rule, because I'm going to give you a table and you have to guess what the rule is. That number is always going to be important. So one of the numbers I'm going to pick 0 always. I have to pick some positives and some negatives. I generally write them in order. But for every half, I don't want to count by 1 because then I end up with a bunch of halves. If I have to multiply by something times a half, what do you think I should count by instead so I don't have to deal with decimals? What do you think, Logan? If I count by 2, every time I have 2 halves, I get a whole, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to count by 2's because I get to pick. It didn't say what I had to pick by. So if I have a fraction or a decimal, I always pick where I get whole numbers. So I'm going to pick this. I'm going to pick -4, -2, 0, 2, 4. Whenever you're going to be graphing an equation, I'd really like you to pick 5 numbers. If you have all 4 quadrants, you should pick some positives and some negatives. I usually do 2, 0, and then 2 more numbers. I'm with you so far, Mrs. Smith, or I don't get why you counted by 2's. Do you get why I counted by 2's? When you get to pick, make the math super easy. Yes? I don't think we should need a calculator. So now that I know what my x number is, what am I going to put in my middle column?
1.5.
I put 1.5 each time. What does it mean if I have the coefficient next to a variable?
Multiplication.
Good, so I'm going to do 1.5 times -4 because it's a negative number. And I'm actually not using x's because that's confusing. I'm going to use the dot.
Can you put 1.5?
1.5 times -2, and you could write 1.5. You have to write the whole thing out though. Does that make sense? 1.5 times 0. I love that one. That one's 0. I'm just going to fill that one in automatically. 1.5 times 2 and 1.5 times 4. Is there anybody who has questions on how we filled in that middle column? That's making sense to us at this point in time? The 1.5 is always in the front because that's what the rule says, and the x is always what our x value is over here, because now we know for that row what it is.
Aren't we supposed to only have 4? I know.
If they have all 4 quadrants, I want some positives and some negatives. Now, positive times a negative is a negative. Signs are different, it's negative. So if I have 1.5 times -4, it's going to be negative what number? Negative,
No.
I can do this one in my head. Do you want to know how?
6.
1.5 and 1.5 is 3.
Yeah.
1.5 and 1.5 is 3. 3 and 3 is 6. You see what I did? I can mental math halves. I have 2 1.5s. 2 1.5s is 3. Positive or negative?
Negative.
Negative. I have two positive 1.5s. My answer is going to be 1.5 and 1.5. I have two of them. It's 3. And it's positive because I have two positives. And then this one's going to be 6. I have 2 together, that's 3. 2 together, that's 3. 3 and 3 is 6. You could use a calculator. I'm not stopping you. Sometimes your brain is a better choice. Okay? Are we done? No, what do we have to do now? We have to graph those points. And so I'm going to find where x is -4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, I'm stuck on this line forever. And I'm going to go down 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Uh-oh, what am I going to do? Add another one. You can see that it's about that far. Okay. -2, -3, 1, 2, 3, because I'm stuck on that x line. Zero and 0. What's that point called? 0, 0. It's got a special name. What is it, Linz? The origin. That'll be our vocab word tomorrow. And then I go over 2 and up 3. 1, 2, 3. Over 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4, 5. Uh-oh. I ran out of room again. Should be pretty close. If you end up more than 1 away, I would pick a different number. Does that make sense? Then we would have to go into a fraction. We are super close, but not quite. We don't know what this situation stands for at all, right? We didn't get a story problem, so we don't know. It could be any of those choices. And so to show that it could be any of those choices, we're going to connect the dots with a straight line. Because really, it could be any of these points, but we just picked those 6. And it could go on forever and ever. So you have to have an arrow here and an arrow here. There will be some times when you're in a story problem when you have to stop at 0 or have to stop at a certain location. Whenever you just get a straight up equation, we don't know. And so you're always going to draw arrows all the way across. Did we graph the equation? We're done. So what will happen is we'll make a function table. And then that function table tells us the x and y numbers to put on there. If it's an equation and we don't know what it stands for, we're always going to connect the dots and draw arrows because it could be any of those things. We just picked easy points. Because why wouldn't you pick easy points if you get to pick, right? If they make you pick points, like yesterday sometimes they made you pick points, then you have to use the points that they pick. Okay? What's your question?
We actually have to show work.
For sure.
Once we don't do work.
Then I'm giving you 0 points.
That's on the sheet.
Okay?